Your mind is a garden, and like any garden, it needs tending. Now that may sound simple, but it's one of the most powerful truths you'll ever learn. You see, the mind doesn't care what you plant. It doesn't say, oh, that's a good idea. Let me help you grow that. Or, oh no, that's a bad seed. We won't let that one take root. No, the soil of the mind is neutral. It's going to return what you plant with interest, whether it's a productive thought or a destructive one. That's the deal. That's how the mind works. And so the question becomes, what are you planting? Are you sowing seeds of discipline, hope, confidence, and vision? Or are you letting weeds grow, thoughts of doubt, fear, procrastination, and excuses? Because here's the kicker. If you don't plant something useful, the weeds show up anyway. Isn't that true? If you leave a garden unattended, weeds don't ask for permission. They just take over. Same with the mind. Neglect leads to default. And the default setting of the world is negativity. That's why people are more likely to drift into worry than optimism. More likely to replay failure than visualize success. The weeds are automatic. The flowers are intentional. That's why learning to control your mind begins with awareness. Recognizing that you are always planting something. Every thought, every idea, every conversation, every belief, those are seeds, and they grow. Maybe not today, maybe not even next week, but sooner or later, what you plant becomes what you harvest. So if you plant fear, you harvest hesitation. If you plant doubt, you reap indecision. But if you plant belief, you'll grow courage. If you plant clarity, you'll harvest action. I used to think success was mostly about talent. Then I thought it was mostly about hard work. But the longer I lived, the more I understood success begins in the mind. Everything starts with how you think. You can't build a skyscraper on a foundation made for a shed. If your mindset is small, your results will be small, no matter how hard you work. So if you want to change your life, start by changing your thinking. That's the foundation. And listen, controlling the mind doesn't mean pretending that everything is perfect. It doesn't mean ignoring the difficulties. What it means is learning how to respond to those difficulties. It's about saying, yes, this is a challenge, but I'm bigger than this. I have the tool. I have the ability to learn. I can figure this out. That's mental control. That's mental maturity. You're not at the mercy of your emotions. You're not tossed around by circumstances. You're the gardener, and you choose what grows. Now, how do you actually do it? How do you tend the garden of the mind? You read, you study, you journal, you reflect, you talk to people who think at a higher level. You guard your inputs, what you watch, what you listen to, what you repeat. You build habits that reinforce strong thinking. You catch yourself when your thoughts start drifting into negativity or resentment, and you gently bring them back. It's not about perfection. It's about progress. You'll never stop weeds from showing up entirely, but you can get so good at gardening that they don't get far. You see, you can't plant corn and get tomatoes. You can't plant idleness and get productivity. The law of the harvest applies to the mind, just like it applies to the field. And once you accept that truth, you stop blaming circumstances. You stop blaming your upbringing. You stop blaming the government, your boss, or the economy. You realize the real work is internal. The real battle is between the ears. And once you learn to control your mind, everything changes. You show up differently. You speak differently. You handle stress with more poise. You make decisions with more clarity. Why? Because your mind is no longer an overgrown mess. It's a well-managed garden. And let me tell you, people are drawn to someone who's done that kind of work. That kind of calm, steady confidence isn't loud, but it's powerful. So plant intentionally, tend daily, pull the weeds quickly, and remember, the quality of your mind determines the quality of your life. The mind is a garden. Treat it like one. Discipline is the bridge between thought and action. It's what takes a good idea and turns it into a good result. Without discipline, the best intentions go nowhere. You can dream, hope, wish, and plan, but unless you learn the daily habit of discipline, your thoughts will remain stuck in the realm of potential. And potential is a beautiful thing, but only when it becomes real. Discipline is what makes it real. We've all had moments of inspiration, times when we said, "That's it, I'm going to make a change." Maybe you read a powerful book or listened to an inspiring speaker. You felt it. You were ready. But then a week goes by, a month, and the excitement fades. What happened? It wasn't a bad idea. It wasn't a lack of desire. It was the missing link. Discipline. The ability to follow through, especially when the feelings fade. Discipline doesn't shout. It doesn't need applause. It shows up quietly, every day, and does the work. It's waking up when the alarm rings, not when you feel like it. It's doing the study when your mind would rather scroll. It's choosing broccoli over pizza, not because broccoli tastes better, but because you've decided to value your health over your craving. Discipline is choosing long-term reward over short-term relief. That's what separates winners from wishers. Not talent, not luck, discipline. Now here's the truth that most people don't like to hear. You can't always control your thoughts. Sometimes thoughts pop into your head that you didn't invite: doubt, fear, laziness, even resentment. That's normal. But just because a thought comes doesn't mean it has to stay. Discipline gives you the power to choose which thoughts deserve your attention. You can't stop the first negative thought, but with discipline, you can stop the second and third. That's real control. Let's take an example. Imagine you're working on a goal, maybe starting a business, writing a book, learning a skill. One day you wake up and think, "Who am I kidding? I'm not cut out for this." That's a thought. It came uninvited. But discipline says, "Wait a second. That's not useful. That doesn't align with my goals. Let me replace that with a better thought." So you redirect. You say, "I may not be perfect, but I'm learning. I'm showing up." That mental redirection is discipline in action. Discipline is also about repetition. It's not doing the right thing once. It's doing it until it becomes who you are. You can't work out once and expect to be fit. You can't be kind once and expect to be seen as compassionate. You can't save money once and expect to build wealth. It's the daily, sometimes boring, repeated effort that shapes the results. And this is why discipline is hard, because it asks for consistency. When comfort says, "Take a break," it asks for focus when distractions say, "Come over here." But here's the good news. Discipline can be trained. Nobody is born with it. You build it like a muscle. Start small. Keep promises to yourself. Say you'll walk for 10 minutes. Walk for 10. Say you'll read 5 pages. Read 5. It's not about the size of the task. It's about the habit of follow through. The more often you do what you said you'd do, the more trust you build in yourself. And once you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. And let's not forget, discipline is freedom. Most people think discipline is restriction, but it's the opposite. When you're disciplined with your money, you have financial freedom. When you're disciplined with your health, you have energy and vitality. When you're disciplined with your health, you have the power to say yes to what really matters. Lack of discipline leads to chaos. Discipline leads to control, and control is the key to growth. So the next time you think about a goal, remember, thoughts are easy, dreams are free, but the bridge that carries you from your mind to your reality is discipline. You don't need more motivation. You need more structure, more self-respect, more accountability. Because once discipline is in place, even on the days you don't feel motivated, you'll still move forward. And those days, those are the ones that count the most. You don't have to be extreme, just consistent. You don't have to be perfect, just persistent. Discipline is not about punishment. It's about commitment. And when you commit, really commit, to mastering your discipline, you'll find yourself achieving things that once felt impossible. Not because you got lucky, but because you built the bridge and walked across it. Thought to action, idea to outcome. That's the power of discipline. Stand guard at the door of your mind. That's a principle I learned early on. And let me tell you, it changed everything. You wouldn't let just anybody walk into your home, track mud all over the carpet, throw trash in the living room, and insult your family, would you? Of course not. So why do we let just any thought, opinion, or influence walk right into our mind and stay there unchecked? The mind is your most valuable real estate, and it deserves to be protected. Every day you're exposed to thousands of messages. Some good, many not. The news, social media, gossip, negative conversations, even self-doubt. These things don't just come and go, they plant seeds. And unless you're actively filtering what gets in, you'll find yourself thinking thoughts that don't even belong to you. You'll start carrying burdens that were never yours. You'll find yourself overwhelmed, discouraged, anxious, not because of who you are, but because you opened the door to too many unqualified guests. Learning to guard your mind isn't about being afraid of the world. It's about being selective. It's about understanding that every input creates an output. You let in worry, you get fear. You let in wisdom, you get clarity. It's simple cause and effect. What you consume mentally becomes what you produce emotionally and behaviorally. Garbage in, garbage out. Excellence in, excellence out. The first step to guarding your mind is awareness. You've got to know what's influencing you. Who are you listening to? What are you reading? What's playing in the background while you drive, cook, or work out? These things matter. They're not neutral. Everything has an effect. Some things lift you up, others wear you down. The mistake most people make is thinking they can absorb negativity and still stay positive. It doesn't work that way. You can't fill a glass with poison and expect to drink health. That's why I recommend being intentional with your input. Listen to people who build you up, not tear you down. Read books that stretch your thinking, not limit it. Watch content that feeds your ambition, not your anxiety. Even the people you spend time with. Those conversations shape your mindset more than you realize. If someone constantly complains, criticizes, or drags others down, you've got to ask yourself, is this someone I want living rent-free in my mind? Because that's what's happening. It's not just about avoiding the negative. It's also about reinforcing the positive. When you stand guard at the door of your mind, you don't just block out intruders. You welcome in guests that help you grow. Start your day with intention. Read something empowering. Review your goals. Reflect on what you're grateful for. These practices aren't cliches, they're tools. They prepare your mind to handle the day from a position of strength, not reactivity. Now let me say this. Guarding your mind doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It doesn't mean denying reality. It means filtering your perspective. Yes, bad things happen. Yes, challenges come. But when your mind is well guarded, you respond instead of react. You think clearly instead of panicking. You see options instead of obstacles. A well-guarded mind doesn't crumble under pressure. It finds a way forward. This is especially important in a world where opinions are louder than ever. Everyone has something to say. Social media, news outlets, even friends and family. They all have input, but not all input is valuable. Not all advice is wise. Just because someone is loud doesn't mean they're right. Just because something is trending doesn't mean it's true. You have to be the filter. You have to be the one who says, this thought supports my goals. This one doesn't. That one goes out the door. The more you guard your mind, the more peace you'll experience. You'll worry less. You'll focus more. You'll stop comparing yourself to others because you'll be too busy working on your own path. And most importantly, you'll regain control. You'll stop being a passive receiver of thoughts and become an active curator of your mental environment. And the benefits come. A strong mind leads to stronger habits. Strong habits lead to better decisions. Better decisions lead to better outcomes. But it all starts with the gatekeeping, with standing guard, with recognizing that your mind is sacred space, and not everyone or everything deserves access. So from this day forward, take the role seriously. Be the guardian of your thoughts. Be selective with what gets in. Be ruthless with what stays. And be consistent in what you reinforce. Because the quality of your thoughts determines the quality of your life. Guard your mind and you guard your future. Emotion without education is dangerous. That might sound a little harsh at first. But think about it for a moment. Emotion is powerful. It's energy. It moves people. It starts revolutions. It sparks ambition, passion, and creativity. But when emotion is left unchecked, when it isn't guided by wisdom, experience, and sound judgment, it can do more harm than good. That's why we have to learn not just to feel deeply, but to think clearly. Feeling without thinking leads to impulsive actions, broken relationships, poor decisions, and regret. It's like driving a powerful car without a steering wheel. You can go fast, but you won't be able to control where you're going. We live in a world that often glorifies emotional expression. Follow your heart. Trust your gut. Do what feels right. Ensure there's truth in intuition. Sometimes your instincts are valuable, but instincts are sharpened by education, not emotion alone. Just because something feels right in the moment doesn't mean it is. Your emotions reflect your current state, not always your future best interest. That's why you need a framework. Something that helps you weigh your feelings against truth, principle, and purpose. Education provides that framework. Now, when I say education, I'm not just talking about going to school. I'm talking about learning, studying, seeking understanding, learning from books. Yes, but also from mentors, mistakes, and life itself. Education teaches you how to evaluate your emotions, not just express them. It teaches you to ask, why do I feel this way? And is this emotion serving me or sabotaging me? Without that kind of reflection, you can end up making permanent decisions based on temporary feeling. Let's take anger as an example. Anger is a powerful emotion. It lets you know something's wrong, but without education, without emotional intelligence, anger can lead to destruction. It can cause you to say things you can't unsay, to hurt people you care about, to burn bridges that might never be rebuilt. But when anger is guided by understanding, it can become a catalyst for positive change. It can motivate you to stand up for what's right, to take action, to address injustice. The difference is the education behind it, the ability to channel the emotion productively, rather than destructively. Same goes for fear. Fear is an emotion meant to protect you, but when fear runs wild without knowledge to balance it, it becomes paralyzing. It keeps you stuck, playing small, avoiding risk. But when you educate yourself about what's actually dangerous, about how growth works, about how to prepare, you begin to separate real danger from imagined danger. You still feel the fear, but now you know how to walk through it. That's the power of an educated mind working alongside an emotional heart. Even love, one of the most celebrated emotions, needs education. Loving someone doesn't mean you always know how to support them, how to communicate effectively, or how to build a healthy relationship. That takes learning. That takes growth. Love without boundaries, without wisdom, without self-respect, it can lead to enabling, to codependency, to self-neglect. But love grounded in knowledge becomes stronger. It's no longer just a feeling. It becomes a decision, a discipline, a commitment. So how do you bring education and emotion together? You make learning a lifelong practice. You don't just feel. You reflect. You ask questions. You seek counsel. You read books. You watch lectures. You attend seminars. You build a library in your mind, filled with principles and patterns. So the next time emotion rises up, you don't suppress it. You guide it. You say, I see you. I hear you. Let's look at this together. You become the leader of your emotions, not the follower. This isn't about shutting down your heart. It's about strengthening your mind, so that your heart can be fully expressed in a way that builds, not breaks. The most powerful people are not the ones who feel the most. They're the ones who've learned to think while they feel. They use emotion as fuel, and education as the map. That combination is unstoppable. So don't just aim to feel inspired. Aim to understand. Don't just react. Learn to respond. Emotion without education is like fire without direction. It can warm or it can burn. The choice is yours. Let your emotions speak, but let education lead. That's where wisdom is born. That's where real change happens. And that's how you gain control, not just of your mind, but of your entire life. Most people try to control their actions without ever addressing their thoughts. They think if they just work harder, stay busier, push themselves more, they'll get where they want to go. But the truth is, behavior is always the result of belief. What you do flows from what you think. If your mind is scattered, negative, or filled with doubt, your actions will eventually reflect that. no matter how much effort you try to exert. You might be able to force yourself for a while, but it won't last. Sustainable change always begins in the mind. Now think about it. Have you ever tried to break a bad habit or start a new one? Maybe you told yourself, starting Monday, I'm going to eat healthy, or I'm going to stop procrastinating, or I'll wake up early every day. You were motivated, maybe even disciplined for a few days, but then you slipped. You lost momentum. You got frustrated with yourself. You started questioning your willpower, maybe even your worth. But the problem wasn't willpower, it was that the root of the behavior wasn't addressed. You tried to change the fruit without tending to the root. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone who wants to be successful, but believes deep down that they're not good enough. They can try to network, work hard, show up early, but that core belief will sabotage them eventually. It'll show up in how they speak, in the opportunities they avoid, in the limits they unconsciously accept. They might not even realize it's happening, but their thoughts are shaping their choices. And those choices are shaping their reality. So if you want to change your actions, you have to start by changing your thoughts. That means taking time to understand your internal narrative. What are you telling yourself on a daily basis? Are those thoughts supportive or self-defeating? Are they rooted in growth or in fear? Because your brain is always listening. And what you say internally becomes instruction. If you tell yourself, I always mess things up, your mind will find ways to confirm that. If you say, I'm capable and I can figure this out, your mind will go to work proving that too. Risk 2, you become what you repeatedly think. This is why self-awareness is one of the most powerful tools you can develop. You can't fix what you won't face. You can't change what you don't first notice. So it starts with paying attention. Listen to yourself when you fail. What do you say? Listen to yourself when things get hard. What do you believe? If those thoughts are destructive, it's time to challenge them. Not with blind optimism, but with truth. With evidence, with intention. Let's say you often think, I'll never be successful. Stop right there. Where did that thought come from? Is it based on fact or fear? What would you say to a friend who said the same thing? Would you agree with them, or would you help them see their potential? Start doing the same for yourself. Interrupt the pattern. Replace the lie with a more empowering truth. Success takes time. I may not be there yet, but I'm learning and growing every day. That shift in mindset may seem small, but over time, it transforms your behavior from the inside out. Another key is consistency. You can't just think a positive thought once and expect everything to change. Just like going to the gym, mental conditioning takes repetition. You have to speak the truth to yourself daily. You have to rehearse belief, even before you see the result. The mind works like a muscle. It strengthens with use. Every time you redirect a negative thought, you're building a stronger mental pathway. Every time you focus on solutions instead of problems, you're training your brain to respond differently. And over time, those thoughts become your default, and those thoughts will guide better behavior. Now, don't misunderstand. Action still matters. But when your actions are aligned with powerful beliefs, they become far more effective. You stop relying on sheer force and start flowing with internal alignment. You start doing things not because you're forcing yourself, but because it feels like the natural next step. That's the sweet spot. That's where true change lives. Not in the struggle, but in the shift. So if you want to master your behavior, start mastering your thought. Don't try to build a new life with the same old thinking. Upgrade the blueprint. Strengthen the foundation. Because when you get your mind right, your actions will follow. And when your actions follow, results become inevitable. That's the process. That's the power of thinking first. In a world filled with distractions, uncertainty, and noise, inner peace isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity. It's the calm center that allows you to stay grounded when everything around you is shaking. It's the stillness that gives you clarity in the midst of chaos. Without peace of mind, even the best strategies, the greatest talents, and the most well-laid plans fall apart. Because peace isn't something you find after the storm. It's what you carry within you through the storm. It's not the absence of problems. It's the presence of perspective. Most people look outside for peace. They think if they can just get the right job, find the right partner, make more money, fix their schedule, or avoid conflict, then they'll finally feel at ease. But external peace is temporary. It's conditional. And conditions change. You can't always control what happens around you, but you can control what happens within you. That's where true peace begins. When you stop depending on the outside to fix what can only be resolved on the inside. Learning to control your mind is the path to that peace, because the mind is where worry starts. It's where anxiety takes root. It's where fear multiplies. And if you don't know how to direct your thoughts, they will direct you often into places you don't want to go. One negative thought turns into another, and soon you've built an entire mental movie of worst-case scenarios. You're not living in the moment anymore. You're living in a story of fear. That's not peace. That's mental captivity. But here's the good news. Peace is something you can practice. It's not reserved for monks or mystics. It's for anyone who is willing to slow down, to breathe, to observe, rather than react. The moment you realize that you are not your thoughts, you are the observer of your thoughts, everything changes. You start to create space between the trigger and your reaction, space between the fear and your choice. And in that space, peace is born. Start small. Begin with awareness. Pay attention to your inner dialogue. What are you saying to yourself when something doesn't go your way? When you're late? When someone criticizes you? When plans fall apart? Do you spiral into frustration? Or can you pause and breathe? That pause is powerful. It's not weakness. It's wisdom. Because reacting out of emotion often makes the problem worse. Responding with awareness allows you to choose a better outcome. Another way to cultivate peace is through gratitude. It sounds simple, but it's one of the most effective tools you have. The mind is constantly scanning for what's wrong. That's a survival instinct. But peace doesn't come from fixing every problem. It comes from focusing on what's already working. When you practice gratitude, you redirect your focus. You train your brain to see beauty in the ordinary, to notice the blessings that were there all along. And when your perspective changes, so does your reality. Peace also comes from acceptance. Now, acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It means acknowledging what is, so you can move forward with clarity. Resistance is what causes suffering. The more you fight reality, the more exhausted you become. But when you accept what's out of your control, you free up energy to change what is in your control. You stop wasting energy on what ifs and start investing it in what's next. That shift from resistance to responsibility is where peace begins to flourish. Letting go is part of peace. Letting go of the need to control everything. Letting go of the past. Letting go of perfection. So many people carry burdens they were never meant to carry. Old regrets, old arguments, old failures, and those things rob them of peace. But peace isn't about dragging everything with you. It's about traveling light. It's about learning the lesson and releasing the weight. That's not denial, it's wisdom. Ultimately, peace comes when you trust yourself, when you've trained your mind to stay steady, even when life gets unpredictable, when you've built a mindset that doesn't collapse every time something uncomfortable happens. That kind of peace is earned. It's developed through discipline, reflection, and choosing to stay centered when everything else is pulling you away. And here's the beautiful part. When you find peace within, you bring peace to others. You become the calming presence in a chaotic room. You become the example of stability in uncertain times. And that influence, It spreads, it touches lives, it inspires change. Because peace isn't passive. It's powerful, it's not weak. It's strength under control, and it all begins with learning to master your mind. Success and fulfillment don't come from reacting to life. They come from intentionally designing it. Most people are living by default. They wake up, check their phones, rush through their routines, respond to whatever demands show up, and repeat it all the next day. They're not driving the car, they're just along for the ride, hoping the road leads somewhere better. But here's the truth. Hope is not a strategy. If you want to create a meaningful life, you can't just go with the flow. You've got to decide where the flow goes. That begins with controlling your mind and consciously directing your focus, time and energy toward what matters most. You were not designed to be passive. You were built with the capacity to imagine, plan, act, and improve. You have the ability to think about your thinking, to evaluate your behavior, to make course corrections. That's your superpower. But if you never take control of it, if you never pause to reflect, to ask yourself what you really want, and then to align your daily decisions with that vision, then you're letting your potential drift further out of reach. Every day, living by design doesn't mean everything will be perfect. It means you are steering the ship instead of just being tossed by the waves. Clarity is the starting point. You can't build a life you love if you don't know what it looks like. What does success mean to you? Not someone else's version, not society's checklist, but yours. What values matter most to you? What kind of person do you want to become? What impact do you want to have? When your mind is cluttered with distractions and unfiltered input, it's almost impossible to answer those questions. But when you take control of your mind, when you eliminate the noise and focus in, you begin to see clearly. You begin to define your direction, and clarity gives you power. With clarity comes responsibility. Once you know what you want, it's up to you to start living like. This is where intention matters. You have to be deliberate with your time, your choices, your habits. Most people don't fail because they lack desire. They fail because they lack focus. They get pulled into other people's agendas. They waste time on things that don't align with their goal. And every time they do, they move a little further away from the life they could be living. When your mind is trained, you don't just drift. You decide. But intention alone isn't enough. You also need discipline. It's one thing to dream about a better life. It's another to do the work to create it. And the work starts in the mind. You've got to overcome the voice that says, I'll do it later, it's too hard. Or what if I fail? Those are not the voice of truth. They're the voice of fear, comfort, and limitation. But if you've trained your mind, if you've practiced catching those thoughts and replacing them with empowering ones, you'll have the strength to keep going even when motivation fades. That's where discipline becomes your ally. Another key to living by design is learning to say no. Every yes is a trade. When you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And if you haven't trained your mind to prioritize, you'll end up saying yes to things that don't align with your values. You'll spend years climbing a ladder, only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. But when your mind is clear, and your goals are in focus, you become more selective. You say yes to growth, to purpose, yes to alignment, and you say no to distractions, drama, and detours. Living by design also means adapting with purpose. Life changes, challenges come, plans fall apart. But when your mind is strong, you don't give up. You adjust. You stay flexible without losing direction. You see setbacks as setups. You understand that the road to fulfillment is not always straight, but it is always worth walking. And every time you choose to respond instead of react, to grow instead of complain, to act with intention instead of impulse, you're strengthening your design. In the end, living by design isn't about having total control over every outcome. It's about showing up each day with purpose, clarity, and commitment. It's about building a life that reflects who you are and who you're becoming. And it all starts with your mind. Master your thoughts, and you master your direction. focus your energy, and you shape your reality. Stop waiting for life to happen. Start designing it on purpose, with power, and with a mind trained to create, not just cope, because the life you want won't arrive by accident. It must be built by